Welcome to the Snowbirds Expat Radio Podcast, powered by the Snowbird US Day Tracker app. I'm your host, Gerry Scott, and my goal is to give you answers to your cross-border questions, to ease the stress of a cross-border move or extended trip, and to keep you up to date on all you need to know with cross-border rules and regulations. Now let's get on with the show. Hello, everybody. It's Gerry Scott from the Snowbird US Day Tracker app, which is what we're doing today is the Snowbirds Expat Radio Podcast. So I welcome everybody to another exciting show that we're going to be having with Evelyn from Calgary. And Evelyn, before we go into all these questions, and today's theme is really the importance of pre-planning your immigration. May you be moving north or moving south. I mean, it's very important. And Evelyn is the go-to when it comes to immigration. She's been involved with the business for a very, very long time. I hope she gets to tell you the story why she went into immigration in the first place, because it really is a very a warm story, and you'll fall in love with Evelyn and her services when we get to hear her story again. So, Evelyn, a little bit more about yourself and your firm and what you do, and take as much time as you can when it comes to telling your story.
Hi, Gerry. Thanks so much for having me. I'm honored to be back on your show talking about what I love the most, which is immigration law. I'm the founder of Ackah Business Immigration Law, and we are focused on Canadian and cross-border U.S. immigration law for professionals and businesses and families. And I've been practicing law for 26 years and having my own firm for 15 years. And we love what we do. We have a team of 18 internationally, and we're always here to talk and try to provide some solutions for immigration challenges.
Well, once again, tell me a little bit more. I want to hear this story again, because especially on a very rainy day in Vancouver, we need a warm story. I mean, I'm drinking hot water here. That's how cold it is, at least for me. So tell me,
Gerry, which story are we talking about?
I think when you told me the reason why you went into immigration in the first place, just the ability to help families that are looking for a better way of life and the whole work. So but go ahead.
Sure. Well, I used to be a corporate lawyer in Toronto, and it wasn't really feeding my soul. And I found my way to corporate immigration law when I worked at an accounting firm in the global mobility group. And I found that it really met my interest and need to have connections with my clients. As an immigrant myself, we moved from Ghana. I was 5 years old, and I met my dad when I was 5 years old at the airport when he came to get me from Vancouver after, he and my mom decided that Vancouver is where they wanted to live. And so when I think about immigration, I think about the importance of family reunification. It definitely means a lot to me. And I really try to help families stay together, because no matter what, the time you're not together definitely has an impact. And so for me, it's about allowing people to live their dreams and create legacy, but also to be together and to be reunited. So that's my story.
Well, it's a great story, and I love it. And thank you for sharing it again.
You're welcome.
Well, let's jump right back into this. So what exactly is pre-immigration planning, and why is it so important for Canadians and Americans crossing borders to live, work, and retire?
Well, pre-immigration planning, really is what it sounds like. It's like you need to have a plan. Even before the immigration component occurs, you need to be thinking about everything from taxes to real estate to your investments, to who's going, who's not able to go, because sometimes some dependents are not able to travel. If they're over 20, 22, 21, they may not be able to be a dependent. And so it's kind of putting those steps in early stages before you even reach out to me as an immigration lawyer to talk about how we can get you to Canada or the United States. So it's kind of like having a plan already, what your ideal goals would be. And usually when I do consultations, I always say, what would be your ideal? What's your timing? What's your planning? What do you want to do when you come to Canada or the United States? And then I help them figure out how to do that. So it really helps us if the the potential client has already thought about these things and knows what exactly it is they're looking for and how they want their life to look in the new country.
I'm going to kind of go off script here because of the timing and yesterday's budget coming out on November the 4th, and they did address immigration and cutting those numbers down to 380,000. Can you expand a little bit more on that and what kind of impact does it have on your clients? And now I know they were talking more about professionals, migrants coming up to
Yeah.
Canada. Maybe touch base a little bit about that budget and how does it
Yeah.
affect?
The budget, I mean, I'm still digging into it, but the key highlights are around the reduction in numbers for immigrants. Their quota numbers are going to be going down over the next 2-3 years. And I think the challenge with that is what to do with those people that are already here. So something else in the budget was recognition, I believe, about 30,000 people. They're looking at ways to keep people that are here already to be able to move to permanent residence, because that's becoming a real struggle for people with the changes, is how to move from worker to permanent residence, given the priorities the government has set in Canada for Francophone speakers, for healthcare workers, and for people in the trades. So if you're not in those categories, you're waiting a really long time. I think, it'll take some time to see what the impact of the reduction will be, Gerry, but obviously it means that they're going to be focusing on the clients or the immigrants that they really want. So those that are creating jobs, those that are highly professional, and those that are meeting the needs that Canada has. Again, healthcare, trades, Francophone people living outside of Quebec. It seems to be the priorities right now.
Now, for the average Canadian, it seems like 380,000 people. And is that per year? Still seems like a lot of people. What was that number before they announced the 380?
I think it was about 600,000, so they have very aggressive targets and they haven't hit them this year even. And so I think this is it's a significant decline, but it's across all areas of immigration. So it's not just professional workers or students, or it's across the whole board. And that means even parent, grandparent, permanent residents. So H&C, humanitarian compassionate, it's all of it. So it's going to be quite a significant change coming up. And I think partly is because they don't have the resources to even manage the numbers that they have right now. It's taking so much longer to complete applications because of the processing delays.
Attention, Canadian snowbirds! Want to enjoy your U.S. stay without worrying about immigration windows, tax rules, or accidentally overstaying? Meet Snowbirds U.S. Day Tracker. This mobile app helps you track your days in the U.S., log multi-year trips, and monitor your U.S. tax and visa exposure, all from your phone. It's designed specifically for Canadians traveling south for the winter. Stop guessing, stay compliant. Download Snowbirds US Day Tracker now and get peace of mind on your next cross-border adventure. Visit snowbirdsusdaytracker.com to get the download link, or look for a link in the show description for this episode. Have a plan before you land, and make your time in the sun about living well, not worrying about rules.
We're restricting the amount of immigrants that can move to Canada now being 380,000. More than ever, you need great professional help, because I know a lot of those, if it was 600,000, a lot of those folks, I'm sure they tried to do this on their own. And that's going to lead to the next question. What mistakes are, the question I have here is, what are some of the most common mistakes people make before relocating that cause problems later with immigration or tax status?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. I think the most common mistake is they don't seek out the advisory supports in advance. So that's why, for me, whenever anybody calls me and they're somebody that I think is going to be a good match for you, I always send them your way, because they need to have that conversation with you first. Same with accountants, cross-border accountants that understand both Canada and US tax and accounting, so that they're not paying double tax unnecessarily, or that they haven't structured their companies in the right way. that helps them have the least amount of tax they have to pay and those obligations. So a lot of times it's the lack of planning. And then later on, like I've learned to always say, before immigration, talk to an accountant, talk to a tax specialist, figure out how we want to structure this, and then talk to Gerry if you've got, assets you need to deal with and how you're going to move money over time or what the plan is going to be. And then the immigration. So a lot of times it's thinking that they're finding information on Google and ChatGPT and they know more than us. And then it'll bite them later if they haven't set those strategies in place. Even things like opening bank accounts, recognizing that when you come to a new country, you have no credit. That is huge. You have to reestablish credit. And so if they're aware of this, it allows them to prepare in advance before they get here and they realize they have a credit card that's Canadian card that's $2,000 as opposed to, $100,000. It takes time, and even mortgages and buying a house. And so I feel like those are the main issues, is the tax, accounting, structure of their corporation, if they're doing a transfer, how to best take advantage of the opportunities to limit liability in tax.
I can't imagine how intimidating this must be. I mean, I've never moved to a foreign country. I've born and bred in British Columbia. Yes, we do spend time in the United States. We do have an E2 visa, which
Yep.
has allowed us at one time. We were seriously considering, could we move to Maui full time? And then I found out about all the state taxes and how it would affect my RSP. So my wife still wanted to move there, but at the same time, not only taxes, but we have grandkids now in Vancouver.
Exactly.
So we could
Yeah.
not, I couldn't imagine how intimidating. With the most recent administration, and we're hearing so much more as of April the 11th, 2025, when there were some things changed. If you're over 14 years of age, the additional filings that you would have to do if you were spending 30 days or more in the United States. Do you want to touch base on that and how that's impacted your professional services to those folks phoning in and asking?
Yeah, it's a bit of a crazy, people are surprised by it, and we're telling clients all the time. Most of our clients are going into the United States with work permits, and so they don't have to deal with that registration piece. It's for the people that are going in as visitors, whether it's business visitors or going in as tourists that are staying longer, that they do need to do that registration after, if they're there for more than 30 days. And so just like you, we have Snowbird clients that might have work permits, or they go down as visitors for 5 months. They know now that they have to do the registration to make sure that they're not going to have any issues later. Because what we're seeing now is any little mistake is affecting people's eligibility to enter the United States now. So you can't mess around with that. You have to prepare and know that you have to do that registration, to do that form, to fill the fee, all of that before your 30 days are up. And especially for children, like you wouldn't think that 14, 15-year-olds need to deal with this, but that's a part of that process as well.
And I think we're getting a lot of questions regarding, filing ahead of time, filing your I-94, going on the border crossing website, paying the fee, having it filed, and then it just kind of speeds up the process. And of course, you don't deal with that at the airports. The airports issue the I-94, unless I'm wrong.
No,
But
you
I
can't
mean,
do that at the airport.
yeah, but people are concerned. They really are. And
Yeah.
and we were featured in a article with I think it's called Wealth Professionals, and they were asking all these questions. And I still think that it's, the reason why Canadians are selling off their homes in the United States, these snowbird communities, is more of a generational thing than it is. Because if I grew up with my mom and dad and that they had a place in Maui and we were going there every year, we have fond memories. Well, now
Yeah.
the younger generation, they want to go to Europe. They want to go to the Baltic states. They want to go someplace every year.
Yeah.
And Maui every year to see mom and dad is a bit of a inconvenience. And when we pass, they don't want our place. They want the dough. Give me the money. So we were
I'll take your place, Gerry. It's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, we were like I say, in this wealth professional article, we were featured based on our knowledge, and our knowledge is through people like Evelyn. I mean, I'm just a sponge. Every time I get a chance to speak with Evelyn, I'm just making my notes and away we go. Never wanting to be an immigration lawyer. We will send those to to Evelyn.
No, I'm the same. I send them your way. Absolutely.
Now, how often does estate planning come up? Because that's the other thing. We talk about immigration. And I know there's this, and we can touch base on this quickly, but there's a 60-month rule. If an American moves to Canada, gets their PR status, explain that 60-month rule and how does it affect them going forward if they plan to move back?
I don't know anything about that, Gerry.
Okay.
Are you talking? Yeah, I don't know anything about that. I'm just thinking, is it about estate planning, or is it about citizenship?
Yeah,
No?
I should have really shouldn't have, going off script here. So basically what happens when an American moves to Canada here, the first 60 months and all the property that they acquire in Canada, if they were to exit, they wouldn't have to pay an exit tax on assets
Oh, the exit
acquired
tax.
before. So
Yeah, I don't know anything about tax. That's why I always send them to professionals.
there
Sorry.
we are. I just wanted to show the viewers how intelligent I was and
You are very
well,
intelligent,
try. I'm
but I'm going to stay in my lane.
That's exactly it. So I guess how do you, and I guess you kind of answered that question. So estate planning, they've acquired all these assets in the United States. Now they're coming up to Canada. Do you do any of that estate planning for them at all? Or is that usually
Gosh, no.
Yeah, it's all tax.
No. I refer them. I talk to them about, again, the things that they need. I feel like we're like a repository of networks and people and referrals. So for me, it's like you have children, you have property you need to think about. Are you going to change your will? I can refer you to somebody to talk about that and plan, but I don't do that at all. It's about issue identification and letting them know you need to think about this tax, your assets, your investments, your health care, your children, what's going to happen with them if something happens to you. So if they're interested and want to make those changes, then I can refer them to one of our, trusted partners that will take care of them.
Now, with all this going on with the administration, do you find, at least we found, that there's so many Americans wanting to move up to Canada, a lot of Canadians coming home? What are you seeing in your practice when it comes to volume being increased by this administration?
It's been very busy, honestly, Gerry. I remember saying I didn't want to be busy because of this whole administration, but we're busy and we're fielding a lot of calls from Americans that are looking for options. And we've moved a lot of people in the last year. Surprisingly, even lawyers that are in I've moved a lawyer from California to Victoria, where he can be a foreign legal consultant and continue practicing California law from Victoria. I moved his family up because he has a daughter, and he was just like, we don't want to have to worry about what's happening there. We're hearing from a lot of people that are kind of in the LGBTQ community as well, that are worried about what's happening in the United States. And a lot of them, if they own businesses, it is obviously easier. So we're doing lots of incorporations, which is something we do. We incorporate and then we move them to Canada and as an intercompany transfer, the equivalent of the L1 on the Canadian side, so they can run their businesses from here and grow their opportunities here, but also live in Canada. As I would say, we're having our best year ever because of what's happening down south. And then we're dealing with a lot of people coming back and they may have an American spouse. So then it's like, how do I get my wife or husband, because I never sponsored them before, and now I want to come home and take this job. And so we're doing inland and out of Canada permanent resident sponsorship applications to bring your children and even to claim citizenship for children. We're hearing from people who are thinking, my grandmother was a Canadian, and they're all applying for citizenship now, just on the off chance that they'll get it at that second generation, third generation rule, because there's a bit of a flux right now in the law. So we're just saying apply. You never know. And if the law goes the way it's seeming to go, they may have a chance beyond that first generation rule to qualify for citizenship. So very busy times.
It got me thinking. We had a call with a family last week and really excited about moving back to Canada, back to the Kelowna area. Mm-hmm. Everybody would be excited about Kelowna, except for people that hate traffic. But I won't bring that up. But this guy was so excited about moving back, and his spouse was denied PR status. What can we do for those people?
Oh my God. I can't understand why. I do know if they did it themselves. Did they work with a professional? Do you know?
Yeah. How often does
So
that happen where someone, in fact, I think he said, stay tuned. I think I might have to buy a wedding engagement ring this weekend. I think he
so
said,
maybe they weren't married.
well, they're not married.
So they're common law.
Correct.
And if they didn't provide enough evidence of common law status, and the statutory declaration of common law. And the other thing is, a lot of times people don't recognize you have to indicate your intention to return. It has to be real. So when you're sponsoring a spouse, you can't just say, I'm sponsoring a spouse. You have to show in your evidence that you're looking for houses, you're looking for jobs, your family's writing letters in the application because we're so excited you're coming back home, or we know that you're moving. So the intentionality has to be there. If it's not in the application, they won't approve it because they're not just going to give a spouse permanent residence without them actually moving to Canada. You need to show that in your application.
And if they do fail, they fail and they don't get their PR. What kind of recourse would they have?
Realistically, they would probably just be better off applying again properly.
Okay.
Yeah, and maybe they can enter, depending on time, if they need to come in, the spouse can come in maybe as a visitor and they can do it from inside Canada if he needs to get started working. So there are options, but yeah, until I know more, it's very difficult. It's not worth appealing. Like that would take too long, whereas it could take 10 months to get the spousal permanent residence, so long as, everything is done right.
So how does a person, how do you know, they know that you've already applied once, so you say you're just going to apply again.
Yeah, you can apply again with more information and maybe something. Again, I don't know what the circumstances were of the refusal. It's very strange. Like we almost never have a refusal for permanent residence. So I feel like something was missing. That's for sure. And then you can just reapply and provide the additional information that was missing. But you can't revive your application. Once a decision has been made, that's it. Unless you have time and you want to appeal, then that's a whole long process.
So really what that person should do when we have a conversation with them, well, we know we're going to call Evelyn. That's number one on the list. But really, we just tell them to reapply. And that's up to you. You can have that consultation.
Yeah, I need to find out what the circumstances were. And once we know, as long as there's no criminality or as long as there's no medical inadmissibility, like we need to know, and then we can figure out what went wrong. And we probably look at their actual application to see what we think is lacking.
That kind of goes into my my question here is that how does pre-planning help families with one spouse is American and the other is Canadian? So
yeah,
pretty well answered all the question.
I mean, this is the big issue is we're seeing a lot of Canadians coming back home. And they are now calling and like, what do we need to do? So one of the main things, if you have children, if you haven't registered them as Canadians, do that now. Or apply for them to get their citizenship recognized and then get their Canadian passports. So a lot of people are doing that and they're getting their children who qualify Canadian passports. But then that doesn't really help the spouse. So depending on their timing, if they need to come in 3 or 4 months, the spouse can come in with them as a visitor and they can do the application from inside Canada. So then it allows for an open spousal work permit as well, usually within 6 months, even though the application is still processing. Once the sponsor is approved as a sponsor, then the spouse can get a work permit and have medical coverage and SIN number and driver's license, all of that. So they need to think about their timing. Like we had a client call us and he's a doctor or he's a dentist, Florida. They want to get out and he's Canadian. And so we're helping get the kids what they need. But the spouse, she's actually a lawyer, a law mama, one of the women in my different groups. And he needs to sponsor her. And so we're talking about the timing. Like, can you wait a year? If you can't, then you need to enter as a visitor and do it all from inside Canada, especially knowing that children can go to school, they'll have their citizenship, so it's just that one spouse. And that sometimes makes it a real challenge because they never thought about it before. And now it's urgent.
As you and I have this opportunity to talk through our podcast, which I'm grateful for. I mean, it's almost like, send me the bill because I've got every day we're coming across because of our niche and our expertise in working with families that are, Canadians moving down south or Americans moving up here or Canadians coming home. Another situation came, one of our clients has their daughter married a U.S. person. She has a green card, but her kids, she's married to a U.S. person. She now has these two kids. I think they were 4 and 6.
Yep.
And a mother says, these kids should be dual citizens.
Mm-hmm.
And so tell us why they should do it now at 4 and 6 rather than waiting. I think I know the answer, but you tell me
Yeah.
the importance to.
I don't know. Sometimes people, I know when you have children, I mean, it's a blur, especially when they're young and you just forget some of these things. But if you did not register their birth with the consulate, the Canadian consulate early on, then you definitely need to do that and apply for citizenship. And what I see sometimes is people don't do it. And then later on, it becomes urgent. Or even in the case of, unfortunately, if there's a marital breakdown, you can't move the kid easily back to Canada. Already, even if the courts allowed it, they need to have their paperwork. And so that delays the ability to kind of move to Canada where they might have more support. So for all of those reasons, and especially I like to see families all have the same status. So I always say, like, if you have children in the States, of course, do dual. One of my kids is a U.S. citizen and a Canadian citizen. Doesn't hurt until maybe 18. Then you got to think about what you want to do and all the rest of it. You're the expert on the tax piece. But for me, it's something may happen and then you don't have that opportunity. So for instance, if the Canadian parent passes, they won't be able to necessarily apply. It's going to be a whole rigmarole. So I always say do it younger if possible, because it takes longer if you wait till you're adult. Yeah.
So if the children are not the births have not been registered with the Canadian consulate in Arizona, the state of Arizona, in the United States, they should do that right away.
Yeah. Oh. And then the kids will be eligible for Canadian passports.
Now, what about the husband who's an American? Does it make sense that he should be getting the dual citizenship as well? Do you have to move to Canada in order to apply for a dual citizen?
You do. So, this is the issue. That's why, for the spouse, this is why it's that spouse that's separate from the children, because the children get the U.S. and Canadian citizenship by virtue of their birth. Assuming that the parent was born in Canada and there's no second or third generation issue. But the spouse, if they want to be sponsored, they have to show that intention, right?
Okay.
They have to show that they are really ready. And so that's where there's always this gap and a delay, because the kids can get it right away and you can all come in, but you have to be like, you can't just get it to get it. Canada does not want people to just have permanent residence but never actually live in Canada. And you can't become a citizen if you don't actually live physically in Canada to meet that 3-year physical presence to become a citizen. Once you do that, then you can go and never come back again if that's what you want. And you can keep your Canadian passport forever, right? You just keep renewing it every 10 years, even if you don't live in Canada. But for permanent residence, you must spend time. And the other thing is, there are some people who might come and do it all with the intention, we're going to live in Canada. Who knows? The administration will change and then they decide we're going to go back. Once they have the permanent residence because they came to Canada and they decide to go back in 3, 4, 5 years, what's great is the one that's a permanent resident, let's say the American spouse, so long as they're with the Canadian citizen spouse, they maintain their permanent residence without having to spend the days in Canada. So that's what's really great. Even if they don't get to citizenship, if they stay as a permanent resident and they're transferred to Europe or wherever, if they are with their Canadian spouse, they can always prove that they've maintained their PR, which is a wonderful thing.
So here's another thought that went through my head. You mentioned that if there was a marital breakdown, there would be an issue with those American kids. What happens if the father, who's an American, passes away? Does that cause a big problem that these kids have not been registered?
But if the father's American,
correct,
the children were born in the States,
correct,
they're American.
Yes.
So they can't take that away. It's the Canadian component around, like, we want to come back to Canada. There'll definitely be a delay because they have to apply for their citizenship as evidence that they're Canadian citizens. Obviously, they can come in as Americans, as visitors, if, something happens. But we've had cases where, oh, it's so sad. We had this Mexican woman who was married to a Canadian. They met in Mexico. It was wonderful. They had a child. He never registered the birth, never got citizenship for their daughter. He came back to Canada. He died here. It was like, something serious. He died. And there was no planning. And it was really brutal. We had to get her involved with, wills and estates and all of it, taxes. And then we did the daughter's citizenship application. We had to provide all the evidence that her dad was a Canadian, and it delayed the estate process considerably. So, I mean, that's a situation where you didn't put it into the place. There's no proper will, and they never registered her, and she was like 12 years old. And the wife never got her permanent residence. So they couldn't live here, and she had to go back to Mexico with their daughter, and so those are the heartbreaks.
So just that I'm clear. So the mom who has these beautiful kids, 4 and 6 years old, the father passes away. They never ever apply for Canadian citizenship for these 2 kids. Mom's complete support network is back in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And would she have a problem even then with those 2 kids without citizenship?
No,
Not at all.
no, because she is the citizen.
The mother is.
What I was saying is,
the
and
father.
even if she did pass, God forbid, I mean, they can still get citizenship, but it's a bit of a rigmarole. Like I was telling you about that, So I just feel like do it sooner. And the other thing is, I don't know what the laws are going to be. Like, it's a crazy world. Canadian immigration is changing too, and almost in reaction and response to what's happening down south. So there's no way that they wouldn't be able to give it to that first generation. But right now, if those kids had kids, they can't pass that down. And so I feel like get it as quickly as you can in case of any changes in the law. It's so heartbreaking when I find out sometimes people even want to come and then something has changed and that child that's 25, 30 may not be eligible to come with the family for whatever the reasons are. So there's always complexities. And I just feel like try to get everybody on the same passports. And if they both can do dual, if that works, but it's always that spouse, because unless the intention is to be in the States or be in Canada, they can't do the application until they're actually ready to pull the plug, within a year or 2 years. Yeah.
That's interesting. That's something that I've learned today. I didn't even think about this, but the spouse creates a problem because he's a U.S. person. He cannot get PR status or citizenship unless he's been in the country for 3+ years, or I think it's 1,095 days over 5 years.
Yes.
You got to prove. There's a great app out there, by the way, for tracking that. It's called the Canada Physical Presence. But it's interesting. So the spouse is a problem, but those 2 kids, why create another problem? Just get it done. I mean, what a great gift. A Canadian citizen.
Get it done.
Yeah, exactly. So that's going to be the biggest. That's huge. Well, is there anything else you want to add? Calgary is a beautiful, beautiful place, and Evelyn does an incredible job for her all the immigration work that we've had a chance to share in. So anything else you want to leave us?
You know what? I'd love to share that, Gerry, things are different. Things are different at the border. Things are different at the airports. I post quite a bit online about kind of what my clients are dealing with. And recently we had a client, it's a company, we do multiple applications for them, L1s, intercompany transfers. And they had somebody, a specialized knowledge worker, and no criminality, no nothing, travels, no problem to the States. We did the application. He went to the border, the airport, because we're avoiding borders, quite honestly, for applications now. You want to do it at an airport, even if you're going to drive down later when you have your work permit. And they were like, put him into secondary. They started screening and looking. And then it turns out they're like, 8 years ago, you were at the border and we asked you questions and we asked you if you'd ever done drugs. And he told the truth. And he said, oh, years ago, I did a little cocaine. It's on his record. They refused the application. He doesn't have a criminal record. It's the conversation. Like they're digging. And so I'm feeling like there's this like over the top level of scrutiny that we're dealing with. And although we have a very high success rate, like 95%, this weird level of scrutiny is adding more stress to people and professionals that are making applications. So right now, you really, really want to be ready for anything. Like, of course, after the fact, he's like, oh my God, I forgot I even said that, right? But it's in there and they're digging and they're asking more questions. And so we're trying to prepare our clients for anything. For instance, we had a client, he's an executive, oil and gas company bought like a $2 million house in Texas, already there's a TN visa, came to renew his TN visa as an economist with the company. And they were like, nope, we think you should be an L1A and you shouldn't have got the first one. And we're like, what? And so we had to redo everything and do his application again and send him back. And he was able to get the L1A. But this is what's happening. So I feel like people need to understand it's a whole new world. And so you cannot assume and you can't be casual and you can't talk about Donald Trump and you can't give any opinions and you can't, be careful what you say because things will never go away based on this client's experience.
So here's an interesting question, because I find every time you go through the, even when you're flying down, I mean, it's so intimidating under this current administration. So you have a person with an E2 visa and they're going across. Do you have to disclose every time when you enter the United States? Can you also enter as a B2 if you're just going down for a little jaunt to see Paul McCartney in
Yes,
in
you can
Vegas?
do that.
You can
Yep.
either or.
Yeah, you don't need to. You can say this is not, I'm not down for any business purpose at all. And so you can say you're B2. And obviously, Nexus Pass, highly recommend it so that you can just move through. I'm telling people to get them because, and it's taking a while, but it really will help facilitate travel if you have a Nexus Pass. So for somebody like you, if you have a work permit or an E2, you can indicate I'm going down as a tourist. This is not a business. And that's a different category that you would complete on the computer screen.
Now, I'd have to think you'd have to be consistent. If I'm going to Maui, I should be using my E2 visa. If I'm going to see Paul
Yes.
McCartney in Vegas, the Eagles in
B2.
Vegas, use my B2. That's good. That's great
Yes.
knowledge. There was something else that popped into my head, and I was just thinking about this for a second. I feel like I'm talking to a immigration person at the border, and I'm just want to get through
You're
this.
nervous.
Yes. Oh gosh, how did I lose that thought? It's intimidating, and be careful. And as you say, keep your answers short.
Yes.
And don't try and educate anybody at the border crossing.
No, and don't talk about politics at all. Honestly, like we have so many anecdotal stories this year of things that we've never seen ever before. And so we're preparing our clients more and more and more. And there's definitely pushback, even for people who are renewing. It used to be like a renewal was like, okay, you updated everything, you knew you're going to get it. Now they're like, we're going to take it away from you.
Okay, it popped back into my head.
Good.
Does it make sense to people to reach out, and can you assist people? I know it's not a big ticket, but to assist them with Nexus passes? Do you ever do that kind of work, or is it pretty straight?
We do.
Okay,
We do.
good
I
to
mean,
know.
people can do it themselves, but we do. And what's been interesting, Gerry? We've had several clients this year who've had their Nexus passes revoked, also related to the CBP experience. It's crazy. So we also help with that so that if it gets revoked, we can appeal. And we've been very successful. But I mean, like, it's like who you get that day. So yes, we can help with the Nexus Pass. Obviously, it's not a lot of work. If people want it, absolutely we'll do it. It has to make sense for them too, cost-wise. But what we're doing more and more is helping with Nexus appeals where they've been canceled for we don't believe what you're doing, or you shouldn't have gone through. This time we had one guy who accidentally went through the Nexus line at the Peace, what is that? The Peace Arch. And he was on his way to Point Roberts, and normally he would go through, but he actually had some equipment and he should have gone through the regular line. And next thing you know, that's it. So we're able to get it back for him. But I mean, like somebody who goes back and forth to their place in Point Roberts every week, that was a huge issue, right? Is not having to wait in line with all the traffic as opposed to going through the Nexus lane. So definitely it's something to think about for people who travel a lot to just get it. And it makes life easier at the airport. My kids and I all have them. It's really helpful. And I think it makes a big difference to the travel experience, to not be so stressed out.
Well, I know that you do a podcast as well, and you've got some great. I don't know if I've seen it lately, but you're still doing your podcast. You do,
Yeah, I still am. Absolutely.
and people can go to your website,
Yep.
and they can click on it. So Evelyn's got lots of information, and once again, I mean, we talked to a lot of immigration people, but the story that you told at the beginning of this podcast, and how much warmth you have for these people coming into Canada or coming home is very much appreciated. So,
Oh, thank you, Gerry, for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. I'm so happy we have you in our back pocket because, as I say to everybody, you need to talk to Gerry in addition to the accountants and the tax people, because they need to know all of that before I do my job, so that I feel like they've gotten what they need. That pre-planning, you're a part of that pre-planning. You and Carson, great team, great people to work with. And our team loves you guys. So thank you so much for all the support.
well, and same to yourself as well, because these are teams. May it be Evelyn, may it be one of the cross-border accountants. We can't, like you say, you got to stick in your own lane. But I
Yes.
truly appreciate what you do and how much care you show, and we can all feel this. And so thank you
Thank
very much
you.
again, and we look forward to
Thank
having you.
you.
Yeah, thank you. And we have a mutual friend in Tracy, so best wishes out to her. I know she's your
Yes.
godmother, so I hope she's doing
She
well.
is.
And
She's doing great. Thanks to you. It's really, you've been so helpful. Like, that's why I even feel even better about referring, because I know how well you took care of her, somebody that I love, that's close to us and went through a lot. And you have made her life so much easier. So we're very grateful to you.
well, thank you for the compliment. She's a wonderful person. So we had lunch together a while ago. We still got to make sure that we get the three of us
The
together.
three of us. I'm coming home for Christmas, but you're probably going to be in Maui,
I'm
right?
getting in Maui, but I will be back on. I'm going to be back in Canada on the 11th to the 15th. So if we can squeeze something in, we look forward to it.
Of December?
Yeah, but you're
I
going to be
don't
here
come the-
closer.
I come
I'll
on the
make it work.
22nd.
2026, 100%
Okay.
commitment. We get to see
All
Evelyn
right,
in
we'll make
person.
it happen. Thank you so much.
Okay, well, you
for the
take care. Best
opportunity.
wishes to your family and stay safe.
Thank you too. Take care.
Thank you again for listening to the Snowbird Expat Radio Podcast. The best way you can support the podcast is to forward the episode to a friend, and please don't hesitate to like, subscribe, or leave a comment. Now, before you go, let me leave you with one of my favorite quotes. Be kind to all, the world is small.